Ashwini, Dipin, gentlemen, good evening. Thank you for joining us. Ashwini, my compliments. Your market call for the day was bang on. Now that we've closed convincingly above 5,300 on the Nifty, what is the next port of call for the Nifty?
Well, 5,400, 5,420 will be a significant resistance. More than specific points, I think we are up about 10% from the lows. Generally, we've seen if nothing changes, markets top out once they've rallied 10 to 12% from the lows So we are getting to a point where if there is disappointment, there could be turning points. So it's useful to reduce volume or to reduce your number of positions. In some way, try to reduce exposure going forward, because next 15 odd days with results and announcements, things will become fairly volatile, and you are much more likely to lose money than you were in the month of March, where the markets were steadily climbing walls of worry. So the next 100, 150, whatever the amount of upside is left, will not be very easy to trade. So generally, when things get volatile, your best course of action is to reduce your exposure rather than expecting market to help you out.
Dipin, what is your assessment? What did the trick for us today?
It's more to do with global markets, and our markets turned around the minute we saw Europe gaining in strength. But the key question is that whether follow-up buying will emerge and whether we'll be able to convincingly trade above the 5,400 Nifty level. And our sense is that we've always said before that markets would remain range bound, and 5,400 or thereabout is the resistance level, and we maintain that stand unless we see improvement in the local fundamentals, especially to do with monsoons as well as some kind of policy action, and maybe a result season which is better than what the street is expecting. So unless we see fresh news flow which is on the positive side, our sense is that it will be difficult for the markets to kind of build on the gains which we have seen today. But then we keep our fingers crossed.
So what should investors do, Dipin? Use this rally to their advantage and sell out, take some chips off the table?
Well, I think depends upon what level of exposure the investor has in the market, and if the exposure levels are pretty high, then I would agree with Ashwini that it's a good time to be a bit light in the markets. We are entering the earnings season, and that could provide opportunities to invest in shares also. At the same time, there could be potential losses if the numbers are not up to street expectations. In any case, I think given the valuations and the condition of the market, it makes sense for an investor to actually wait for the result season to be over, or if he's specifically targeting a company, to see the results of that company and then take an investment call. So I would say that it's a good time to lighten up a little bit and get ready for action on corporate news flow, and then have a very keen eye on how the monsoon is progressing and what reforms the government is able to take after the presidential elections are over and done with.
Ashwini, are you a bit surprised with today's price action in FMCG? Because even though high beta stocks made a comeback, the FMCG index today was up almost 2%.
Well, FMCG has outperformed, throughout the last 1.5 years. And at higher levels, people tend to move towards FMCG. But definitely, ITC, as we'd seen, with that negative news which was there, I think a week back, that, in all such declines, these stocks should be bought, because given the uncertainties around the world and in India, FMCG remains your best bet. So at higher levels, if you have to be invested, these are the stocks to back from here.
Okay, let's look at IT, and ahead of IT, how large cap IT stocks are moving. Bear in mind, 12th is the D-Day for large cap IT stocks. Before the bell, we will get numbers from Infosys. After the bell, we will get numbers from TCS. Infosys ahead of numbers today closed at 24.59. TCS was flat, but bear in mind, Infosys was down on Monday and TCS was up on Monday. 12.61 for TCS. Dipin Mehta, what do you expect to hear from Infosys and TCS on 12th?
I think the rupee numbers will look decent, and it may kind of enthuse the markets. At the same time, I think there are hardly any expectations from the entire IT pack, or for that matter, any of the export-oriented companies. So that's positive, and there could be an element of surprise if the statements coming out do suggest that the worst is over for the sector. And Infosys has been rather giving negative commentary for the past several quarters. If there's a change of tone over there, and if the management kind of inspires confidence that going forward at least they may be able to get a decent volume growth, then I think the stock could rally from this price point. But I think it's let's just wait and see how the result season how the actual numbers flow, and then look at some of the qualitative aspects as regards whether they're able to manage the actual price points as well as the volume growth, and what effect has the currency played in their numbers. Because my sense is that for the entire IT sector, the rupee numbers will look fantastic given the depreciation which has taken place. And then when you convert them to earnings per share and P multiple, they may just about look a bit attractive. So there's a bit of an opportunity that this sector could get some kind of a leadership position in the markets. But as I said, I think it's better to just wait and watch, and there'll be enough opportunity to enter Infosys as well as some of the other IT stocks even after the results are known.
Bank stocks also had a strong session today. The Bank Nifty was up by 1% plus. In fact, the Bank Nifty along with infra names, they did do the trick for Indian markets. That's the Bank Nifty movement for you. 7-day change up about 4.5%. Today's change up by about 1.8%. But within the banking space, ICICI Bank is now leading it from the front. ICICI Bank in quick time has appreciated from levels of 900 to 942, up 13 rupees. Bear in mind, ICICI Bank has a very high weightage both on the Sensex and on the Nifty. So a 20 rupee movement on ICICI Bank will actually nudge the needle on either sides for the Sensex and then for the Nifty. Ashwini, the technical setup for ICICI Bank, do you think the stock is looking good for another 5% from these levels?
No, we need to remember it started moving from levels about 800. So, that was a level where you could easily bet on going long on ICICI Bank. Now from here to say that, whether it's going to go up 5% or not, I don't think that's a, great view to be taken. But definitely, if it does go 5% from here, it will be fairly close to previous intermediate highs of about 975, 980. And that should be your level to, take some profits off if you've been around from, 775, 800. And that would be our advice to even clients that another 30-40 rupees on ICICI Bank, and you should try to bail out.
Dipin, are markets somewhere secretly worried about the progress in monsoon?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the biggest question mark at this point of time. And although we know that the effect of agriculture or the proportion of agriculture in the overall GDP is very low, but given the situation we are in, where there is low growth and high inflation, a bad monsoon will only make it worse, because that would push RBI again to the wall, and any chances which we may have of reducing the interest rates would evaporate if the monsoons were bad. At the same time, I think it would affect the demand for several companies, and especially those which have large sales coming from rural markets. And overall, I think monsoon still has an effect on the sentiment, and a bad monsoon certainly would dampen the sentiment and impact sales in various industries, and including industries like cement, maybe real estate, steel. Everything is interlinked, and a poor monsoon would make it extremely challenging and difficult. So if you ask me, I think the biggest worry at this point of time for our markets, more than policy action also, is the monsoon. And every day we hear about the crisis which is developing on the water side, reservoirs at 10-year lows and stuff like that. All this is pretty scary and does tend to impact stock markets. So I would say that let's just hope and pray for the best, because this is not turning out to be a good monsoon so far, and we do hope that the IMD is right and the actual monsoon is as per normal, but so far it has not played out that way.
Apart from monsoon, what else could influence your portfolio tomorrow? Tomorrow HDFC Limited is due to declare numbers. These numbers are important because they will in a sense set the tone for the entire banking stroke the financial space. Nifty futures today they have closed at a premium, which means in the last 1 hour of trade today there was an element of short covering. Follow-up buying in auto stocks again will be crucial because that's one space where in the near term there are plenty of headwinds, and then the dollar index is still at a 1-month high. If the dollar index stays above 83 in the near term, that for sure will challenge the risk on trade. Ashwini, let's discuss ADAG stocks. Do you think ADAG stocks, especially names like Reliance Infra and Reliance Capital, do you think they have genuinely turned the corner?
You know, it's difficult to say whether they have turned the corner. Sure, they are in an upswing, and like Reliance Infra can easily go towards levels of about 625, 630, which are previous intermediate highs. But it's difficult to say that they have bottomed out. They would have bottomed out once Reliance Infra starts crossing, the 650, 660 kind of zone. So the previous intermediate highs which were made when the Nifty went to 5600, any stock that crosses that level, you would say has bottomed out. Otherwise, these are up and down swings in a sideways market. This can continue for many years. I mean, given the stagflation type of environment, we should forget about market bottoming out and going to new highs, etc. This can continue for a long time.
Dipin, for last 3 months, Nifty has moved in a range of about 5100 to 5400 on the upside. What do you think could be the Nifty range for next 3 months?
I would still say that unless we have some fantastic positive news flow in the local economy, domestic economy, or globally, solution is found to the EU problem, I would say that would remain the range. Sure, the market could trade above 5400 for 2-3 trading sessions, but convincingly start trading above 5400 looks a bit difficult unless we have supporting news flow. So I would still maintain that 5000, 5400 is a good trading band, and markets could trade over there for next 2-3 months, and then let's see what the facts are, how the data and trends emerge at that point of time. Sure, if the market continues to trade at these levels, what will happen, Nikunj, is that we'll see a lot of action in the mid-cap stocks, and maybe the mid-cap index could start outperforming, and a lot of other sectors and companies which have been beaten down where valuations are attractive, they will come into play, because the minute the markets are trading above the 200 moving average or around these levels, retail investor does tend to start taking interest, and you could see institutional activity also shifting from large cap stocks to mid cap stocks. And over there, the advantage is that even limited amount of fund inflow could have exaggerated move given the liquidity conditions. So maybe the market would remain range bound, but investor portfolios could certainly do better because of action in mid-cap stocks.
Ashwini, a very quick take on this one. We've started the month of July on a high note. Markets are hopeful that we could see some policy reform immediately after the presidential elections. But do you think by the time we will wrap out of July, we could be staring at ugly scenario?
Well, it could be a very volatile next couple of weeks. And depending on the news flow, so far it's all talk, no action. In case some big bang action happens, who knows, even 5600 is possible. But, if the policy moves are just a small whimper, then chances are that 5400 will not sustain, and we will begin to come down fairly sharply, or if, allies start pushing and pulling all over the place. Because, this isn't exactly a crisis where something must be done. So, while talk is fine, we need to see delivery. If delivery doesn't happen, then 5400 will not sustain.